Hi, I'm your host, Karen Miranda. Welcome to Whispers from the Other Side. We are coming to you live from Plymouth, Massachusetts at the local scene. Thank you for letting me film my show. I'm going to explain to you about what I am, what I do, and I've also been an experienced producer for several years. And what I do is I'm a spirit medium, which is somebody that can communicate with the loved ones on the other side. I have been an experienced medium for several years. I'm what they call a clairvoyant, clairsentient medium, which I see spirits in and out of my head, things that they owned. And the clairsentient part is I feel the presence of spirits all around me. Like during the show, you might see me when I'm doing a reading for somebody, that my personality will change, or like if someone's confused that had passed away from like a dementia or Alzheimer's, that could happen too. It's just different every time with me, but I have been a successful medium, like I said, for many years. I I just have some stories I'd like to share with you guys at home, and the lines are now open, so feel free to call. Our loved ones are gone but not forgone, and just a thought away. And I want to share with you with one of my experiences I've had with the clairvoyant part of seeing. Is one time I can remember I was in the cemetery actually in Chelsea, Massachusetts, where I was seeing flashes of light, which is a form of, how spirit will show themselves to me. And when I see the light energy from them, all the information will start coming in like gangbusters, actually, and things like that. So it can be a lot of information all at once that comes through. Sometimes, everybody can usually understand who's coming through in a reading, but it's a lot of information. That's just one of the ways how spirit presents themselves to me is, when I see the energies of their auras, I'll be delivering the messages. And one experience I would like to share with everybody at home is a while ago, I just experienced this of being a medium and delivering messages from deceased loved ones. Sometimes it's not always easy. Like if it's repetition with spirits, it can, be like, over and over again and stuff like that. That's just the deceased loved one trying to get the message across to the living that's here on the earth plane. And that can get very, especially if you're not open to spirit communication, that's okay, because everybody has their own free will and their own belief system. But sometimes that can happen with, sharing who's coming through from the mediums, because I've had so many people come to me too about dreams, which is another way that spirit, I'm going to be talking to you guys a lot about how spirit communicates with you, so that way we are not familiar with me and I'm not familiar with you guys from Plymouth, so I'm just doing that tonight a little bit. But what they do too is they can come visit you in your dreams, and they're trying to, say, hey, I'm here, I'm listening in. And sometimes there will be a message that they're trying to deliver from the other side too, especially when you see them over and over again and you don't understand what they're trying to say in the dream. Just you can ask them, to say, what are you trying to tell me through the dream, which is the dream state. And I would say to them, okay, so if you can't tell me, but wait till the time is right. Because I think when they come through dreams is one of the best ways to communicate with the people that have passed over. And sometimes it could be around that 2 o'clock in the morning time, and that's what I call spirit time. You do have me say that, where they'll come in your dreams, and you might wake up out of a twilight. It's called the twilight state. When you're in between this world and the afterlife, and you're in that comfort zone, I also say sometimes, when spirits will visit you and sometimes it could be out of your head too. That's how they present themselves as well, is spirit manifestation, but it will not be like sometimes with people during the day. It can be because it's different every time. But what they do that way is they'll let you know they're there, and you'll get to see them out of your physical head or in your dream state. And that's one of the ways. And then letting you know, hey, I'm okay, you know, and stuff, and things like that. Just to let you know that. I am also, with me, I have the paper in front of me. I'm what you call a spirit artist. I can draw the deceased people on the paper, and it's usually what I call a quick sketch. And they let me draw them out and things like that. And sometimes something won't be perfectly with the drawing on the paper with me, because sometimes they will show a little bit of deformity with me, with how they're presenting themselves, which is really nice, but usually people can understand the person in the drawing, and once in a while, yeah, it doesn't happen that way too, but that's okay. But that's another way that people, deceased loved ones, do communicate with me, is called spirit art. The other thing I want to share with you, which is a fun thing I like to share, is when people's spirits will come back, and they're just trying to get the message across to someone that's alive. I had the fun experience of my friend upstairs, I like sharing the story too, who's also my neighbor, and her friend come by. And what was happening is you do develop with it, and you do change with it, and you do learn and grow with spirit communication too, as long as it's from the highest and best too. I always say to them, you know, I don't like to say anything bad or anything negative. I'll do medical diagnosis. That's your doctors. That's for them to, you know, give you that. But this was a fun, loving soul that had passed away, and she was coming through, and they were out on a boat trip actually, and I'm there in the kitchen, you know, saying, okay, but your friends are out on the boat trip, they're not here right now. And I said, I live on the waterfront, so it's like it's in my kitchen. So it was just like, all right, people are gonna think I'm really weird. But I said, I wasn't arguing. It's kind of like I was having a fun conversation with the person that passed away. And sure enough, when two people came home, I said, I gotta talk to you for a second, if that's okay. And they said they were all happy to hear what their friend had to say. And I said, I gave the information to them of what was coming through, and they were so thrilled to hear from their friend. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because they will come back with information and evidence for you guys at home, just to let you know that too. And when I was learning, it takes several years of study. I was in development circle class for at least a good 10 years, because this is serious stuff. It's your feelings and your loved ones that are coming through. And I had to learn to control what was going on with me. No, I'm kind of like a little bit all over the place, but it all comes together. And what was going on with me, because I was giving messages to people before, you know, this happened. But I was giving messages, and I said, okay, somebody said, those are all well and good, Karen, but that's my family that passed away. And I said, okay, so now I have to find out what's going on. So I was led to a spiritist church, actually, which was wonderful, because that's how I had to learn. I had to learn to control who I was seeing, feeling, and hearing from the other side of that are in heaven, or, you know, whatever, you know, that good place. So I did that, and it was wonderful because it's different every time. It's different. I never know who's gonna come through. When I do a reading for you at home from the deceased loved ones that are on the other side. And what they also do with me too is they share their memories with me. During a reading, I will get their information, but they also love talking about the happy times that you guys did with your deceased loved ones that have passed away. And they love doing that, because they like to share the celebration of their life, you know, not the sad stuff and all that stuff. It's all, you know, all good stuff. And one time somebody asked me, are you healed when you cross over? And yes, you are healed, and things like that. And do you go right up to heaven? I said, whatever your belief system is, you know what I'm saying? So I believe in heaven myself, being brought up Catholic. So I said, yeah, yes, you do go to heaven. But you come back, you know, to visit and stuff like that. And then you go, then I get asked, will we recognize our loved ones when we pass away? Yes, you will. It could be different, though. It might not be like the physical, but the spiritual part of how you're seeing them. It could be light. It could just be that energy that you're feeling from them, which is nice to know. You know what I'm saying? So you just recognize and you know, because love over on the other side is eternal. I wanted to fill you in on that. It never dies. It never does. If you see me have a hard time breathing, because I do have a man in the studio that had lung issues when he passed away. But I'll ask him to wait until somebody calls. And what will happen is, you know, you do recognize your loved one that has gone on before you, because when I started learning as a medium, somebody said to me, are you going to see your family when you cross? I said, oh, no way. I said, I want to see my friends, because I lost some girlfriends at a very young age and that had passed away from cancer. I said, I'm going to meet up with them. I'm not going to bother with my family, not right away anyways, but that was really wonderful. And sometimes, you know, when information gets delivered, it might not make sense at the time during a reading, but when it's being delivered, you might say, that doesn't make sense. But then sometimes later on, when you think, oh my goodness, that was so-and-so that came through who passed away, it's, you know, like they understand who it is. And I always say during the reading, if it's okay if you don't understand and things like that, and that's why I say, please don't give me any information, because I know sometimes everybody at home gets excited and stuff like that. And so I say, please don't give me any information. But if you want to tell me after the reading is all done, it's okay. I'm just filling you in on little bits and pieces of how I am as a medium. You guys don't know me, and I don't know you guys too. So that's why it's like, you know, giving you bits and pieces of information. And one time it happened to me, actually, when I was doing a reading for somebody. They said, I didn't understand who was coming through at all. And I said, that's okay. But then when I got home, I did like, oh my God. And I said, what? She said, I had to tell you, Karen, this was making a whole lot of sense of who was coming through with me. And I said, that is so wonderful. But, you know, thought about it. And it's a lot of information, like I said. But she thought, and she was so glad. She thanked me. But I said, it's not about me. I'm just the person in between the veils delivering the message from people that, you know, are trying to, you know, come through to you and things like that. The other thing, and I'm seeing a woman with a wedding band in the studio right now too, just to let you guys know that. I'm seeing a wedding ring, but I just gotta wait, just to let you know that. And I just wanted to say, yeah, because it's different every time. When I was learning and growing as medium, I had to learn to shut down. That's why you guys will see me with the necklace on. Because I said to myself, somebody said, I need an on-off switch. Because sometimes it just can be overwhelming with deceased loved ones and spirits, that it can be bombarding and stuff like that. So when I first started developing as a medium, I used to stomp my foot, and somebody in class said, you don't really do that, do you? And I said, yeah, I do. It's the only thing they listen to is me stomping my foot. But I had to learn not to do that. Sometimes it doesn't fully work. When somebody gets a message, they're going to get a message from me. And it was really interesting because they said to me, that's a good thing to know, just to have the on-off switch, because, it could be overbearing, like I said. The other way they do communicate with me is, I love when they do this. They share their memories with me and stuff like that. One way you can, but there's something you can do, and I always say to people when you're really missing your loved one that passes away, is you can write a letter to them, and just put it in on the paper, write down all your feelings of how you feel and how you miss them and stuff like that. That's just an exercise I want to share. And there's something along with that I do want to share with you at home. I, did that a lot, when I lost some real close people, and when I lost my sister back in 2023, it was hard for me because I didn't get to say goodbye to her, but I know it's not goodbye. But she lived in Jamaica and things like that. So I said, I'm going to write her a letter. And so it was the day of her wake, and my dad called me. He said, I'm running late. And my girls were really upset because they didn't know they didn't get a chance to say goodbye. So I said, why don't we all write letters? So what they did is we all got a piece of paper, and we started writing down our feelings and everything like that, and told her how much we miss her, but we know she was okay. And that it was nice because we got the letters done. We didn't think they had enough time. And then my dad called, my late dad. He said, I'm running late. I said, perfect. And I think Spirit worked that out so we could have a chance to get the letters written out for her, because the kids weren't going to come at the time. My kids are all grown up now, but they were happy that they got to write the letters. My dad came and I said, Karen, it was really strange. He says, nothing surprises me, Dad. He said, I was running out of time for stuff, but then all of a sudden I had time to do things. And I said, really? Because that's really interesting. Because I said to him, I go, when you called me to tell me, the girls were feeling kind of sad that they didn't get to say goodbye. And that's when I suggested writing letters. And he said, oh my goodness. And I said to him, that was just strange how we shared that. And I said, I wonder if she knew she was getting ready to pass away. And my dad said to me at the time, somebody's also said that to me too. And I know she knew she was gonna, be passing away, but that's my feeling. That's how strong I believed in what was going on at that particular time. I said, when we get to the funeral parlor, is it okay if I look for the undertaker? He says, yeah, that's okay. So I went over to the undertaker and I said, because it was a closed casket, because they had to go through all the legal stuff to bring her body back home. I said, can I put this in her casket? It's the letters that my girls wrote to my sister. And he said, well, you might not want to do that, and of course, being heartbroken. He said, but I can put them in. I said, oh, okay, and things like that. So that made me happy. And of course, he waited till everybody left the room, which was really nice because it was kind of like a private moment, but I couldn't stay when he did that, which was really nice. And so a couple of days had passed, and I fell asleep on the couch, and stuff like that, feeling the sadness of her passing, which is normal to grieve too. It's very normal. And all of a sudden it was like 5 a.m, Spirit time, and you gotta hear me say that, on and off when I do the show. That's, the time that Spirits will try to communicate. I couldn't believe it. I looked up, and there it was, the letter from my sister, with the notes, with all the scribbles, all the writings that my kids put on. So when the girls came home from school later on that day, I said, I got something to tell you. Your aunt got her letters, and they were so excited. They were like so happy that she received the letters and things like that. It was like they were having a healing, because letter writing to me is healing too, and you write down all your feelings and everything. But everybody deals with grief in their own way. But that was just our way of, with the grief stuff. That's why I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. But if you need help out there, there's help out there too, for counseling and all that good stuff. But that's your choice and your business, just to let you know that. But it was just our way to deal with our loss at the time. And what was really happy is I was so happy that my sister received her letters. One really fun thing with the clairvoyant part of it, which is what I want to share. I used to run, and I did, a lot of road races and things like that. And when I was out running, around a clairvoyant medium, there was somebody running in front of me because I saw footprints on the ground. And it was like, oh my goodness. So I had the extra company with me when I was out running. But I said, that's all well and good, guys, but can you wait? Because this cannot be so cool, because something could happen where I could just trip and fall. And they said, oh, and all of a sudden the footprints disappeared and things like that. But well, now and then they'll do that with me. They just did that to me a while ago. I was at Whitehorse, actually. And I didn't see that for a couple of years with the footprints on the ground. And I was walking and I said, oh, this is so cool. They were showing me their footprints again and things like that. And I thanked them, as long as it's from the highest and best and stuff like that. I said, I thanked them for that. And that's one of the cool ways that spirit can present themselves. The other thing I'd like to talk about with me, and you guys could be experiencing this at home, you ever feel like you're not alone in the room, or a tap on your shoulder? That could be your deceased loved ones and spirits letting you know that they're there and you're not alone. Or you feel their presence so strong, you go to look this way and say, oh my God, and the person's not there. That's just the clear sentience part of it, where they're letting you know that they're there, with trying to communicate with you through the clear sentience part of it, which is the feeling part of it. And they're just letting you know that. One time I can remember I was in church and saying some prayers, and everybody had left and everything like that. And it was dark. We were closing up the church or something. And all of a sudden, I was in front of the tabernacle saying some prayers. And all of a sudden, I felt this tap on my shoulder. And this was even before I was developing as medium. And I felt this tap, and I'm like, went to look, and I said, oh my God. And I went to look, and I said to someone, so is that you? And of course, they didn't answer. And it was somebody there. And I got to admit, kind of maybe a little nervous because I didn't know what was going on. But I thanked the invisible person that was there for letting me know that they were there and things like that. So that's another way your deceased loved ones will let you know that, hey, I'm here listening in and things like that. The other thing that is a fun thing when they do that is they say, I'm here, and stuff like that. Another thing is the spirit energy light that I was talking about earlier. I was in a class one time, and I started seeing this young man form behind somebody that was teaching the class, and I can't get into it, but so-and-so, Mary or whatever, she was there, and I sorry about that, I said to myself, I'm not going to say anything to her until I had to go up and do the platform thingy and stuff like that. And I just said, she didn't understand, but that was okay. And I said, but, I thanked the person for coming through. And that's another way that they can, show themselves to you, is that way too. There's clairvoyant, clear sentience, clear smelling. When you smell perfume or cologne, because they've done this to me before too, or like flowers, that's their way of letting you know we're here. Was a favorite cologne or like a flower through the sense of a rose, or even a lily, or whatever the person liked with their, that they liked for their flower, like female, or a band with his favorite cologne and aftershave lotion. That's just their way of letting you know we're around, we're here. And symbols. When you see symbols like butterflies and things like that, if you're outside and you're thinking of your loved one and a butterfly might fly by, that's just their way of your loved ones letting you know that they're with you and, you know, that they're around. It's just the symbolic. The thing with symbolic, I had a really cool experience that happened last year actually, and I'm gonna share with you guys at home. I was at the little park near the center, and sitting down on the bench, there was a dragonfly right next, because dragonflies are very spiritual too. I went over to the bench to say my prayers and things like that, and the most amazing thing is usually dragonflies don't go near humans, but I said my prayers, I did my meditation, and all of a sudden the dragonfly just disappeared after I was all done with my spiritual work. And I thanked this dragonfly. I don't know if it was my family or symbolic, but they were just letting me know that they were there, you know, symbolically, you know, and things like that. So that can happen too with, you know, the deceased loved ones. They will let you know through the symbols, and music too is another way that they will let you know all of a sudden, like a favorite song that maybe your husband or your wife or a friend that you guys used to listen to all the time, and all of a sudden you hear it out of the blue on the radio and you were thinking about them. That's just another way too of them letting you know that they're there with you and stuff like that, listening in, you know, and stuff. They do hear, you know, you talking to them and, you know, wonder if they're okay. And deceased loved ones are okay, and they're not alone on the other side. But symbols, music, sense of smell, clairvoyant, clear audio, clear hearing is another way that spirits will communicate with you, is through hearing. It can be either in your ear or out of your ear, telepathically, or, you know, voice-wise is another way. What they do is with communication that way is communicating with you that way and stuff like that. So just to let you know that. And these are just some things I'm gonna fill you on. And so if it was scattered a little bit at the beginning, that's okay. Like I always say on my other shows, Karen always finds her way back. But I'm gonna be here, you know, we'll figure out the schedule, and just to let you know that if when it's on the air and everything like that. So just to let you know that. And that's how I work as a medium. And, you know, it took a lot of, you know, study and things like that. So thank you for letting me share my loved ones, you know, my experiences with you. And I'll be sharing the stories as I go along. And feel free to call the station and things like that. I just wanted to figure that I'm going to get going with this sketch for a little bit on the paper, but I just wanted to share that with you. And that's how spirits communicate with me, just to let you know that too.